Alright, so today we're jumping into a story that is, and I'm not kidding, stranger than fiction. It feels like something straight out of a spy thriller. We've got a powerful politician, accusations of $1 billion gone missing, and this absolutely wild kidnapping plot. And the craziest part? It all goes down in broad daylight on the streets of London with a finale on an airport tarmac that you just won't see coming. Right there, those are the words of the man at the very center of this whole affair. Umaru Dikko. Just try to imagine it. One minute you're walking out of your home in a pretty posh London neighborhood. The next you're being thrown into a van, some guy is literally sitting on your head, and they're shackling your limbs. This isn't a movie scene, folks. This is exactly where our story kicks off on July 5th, 1984. So, the big question is, who was this Umaru Dikko, and why on earth would someone go to such insane lengths to snatch him off the street? To really get the kidnapping, you first have to get the man, and the political firestorm he was running from. You know, just 18 months before he got tossed into that van, Dikko was one of the most powerful men in all of Nigeria. Seriously, as Minister of Transport, he was a major player in the government. But then, on the very last day of 1983, his whole world turned upside down. A military coup, led by General Buhari, took over. Dikko knew what was coming for him, so he did the only thing he could. He fled to London. So why the dramatic fall from grace? Well, it all came down to money. A lot of money. The new military government slapped him with an accusation of embezzling a staggering $1 billion. Just like that, he became Nigeria's most wanted man. And you better believe the new regime was dead set on bringing him, and that $1 billion they claimed he stole, back home. Now, for his part, Dikko always said he was innocent. He was convinced he could never get a fair trial with the new military government in charge, and that's why he was seeking refuge in the UK. But here's the thing, legal extradition requests were going nowhere. So it seems the Nigerian government decided, okay, let's try a more direct approach. And that desperation is what leads us to the plan itself. And what a plan it was. I mean, this is something straight out of a Cold War spy novel. It's a pretty chilling look at how far a country might go, even outside its own borders. They weren't just going to grab him, they were going to ship him. The plan was just brutally simple when you think about it. Step 1, grab him. Step 2, knock him out. Step 3, mail him home. A Nigerian Airways cargo plane was already on the tarmac at Stansted Airport, just north of London, waiting for its, let's call it, special delivery. The whole idea was that by the time anyone even knew he was gone, he'd be thousands of feet in the air on his way back to Nigeria. Now, make no mistake, this was not some amateur hour job. To pull this off, they put together a team of real specialists. The leader was an Israeli named Alexander Barak, who was believed to be a former Mossad agent. He had a Nigerian intelligence officer with him, and another Israeli national. And here's the key, they brought in an anesthesiologist, a Dr. Shapiro. His one and only job was to keep Dikko alive but completely unconscious for the entire flight. So you've got this professional team, the plan's rolling, the target is in their hands. Everything looks like it's going off without a hitch. But this multi-million-dollar international intelligence operation was about to meet its greatest enemy, British bureaucracy. Let me introduce you to Charles Morrow. He is a young customs officer on duty that day at Stansted Airport. His day was going perfectly fine until about 3 p.m. when the handlers for that Nigerian Airways flight came to him with a really weird request. They had this cargo, 2 big old crates, that they wanted on the plane, but they didn't want a manifest, no paperwork. For Morrow, this was the first tiny little red flag. Now, at the same time, another critical piece of the puzzle just falls into place. See, what the kidnappers didn't know was that Dikko's secretary saw the whole abduction happen from an upstairs window. She immediately called the police, and that call triggered what's called an all-ports bulletin to every airport and seaport. So all of a sudden, Charles Morrow isn't just looking at some cargo with no paperwork, he's looking at 2 crates big enough to hold a man on the very same day a man was reported kidnapped. The dots were starting to connect. And this, right here, is where the whole thing just starts to fall apart. See, a Nigerian diplomat who was there tried to play the diplomatic bag card. He was basically saying, hey, these are protected by the Vienna Convention, you can't touch them. But Morrow, our customs officer, he did his homework. He checked the rule book, and guess what? The crates failed on every single point. They weren't marked right, the diplomat didn't have the proper documents, a total bust. So much for that shield of diplomatic immunity. With the green light from the Foreign Office, Morrow and his team moved in. Can you picture the scene? These crates are sitting on trolleys, literally moments away from being loaded onto the plane. This whole crazy, audacious plot now boils down to this one moment on the airport tarmac. It really is the ultimate question, isn't it? On one hand, you have this high-stakes, covert international operation. On the other, you have a diligent customs officer who's just doing his job. So what happens when those two forces collide? The cargo manager, a guy named Peter, pried the lid off the first crate. And in that one instant, every single suspicion was confirmed in the most terrifying way. Morrow actually says that the Nigerian diplomat who'd been standing right beside him just took off like a startled rabbit across the tarmac. This just perfectly captures how surreal the whole thing was. That's a direct quote from the 999 emergency call Morrow made. You can just hear it, right? The calm professionalism mixed with the absolute mind-bending weirdness of the situation. Alive or dead? That was a question nobody had the answer to just yet. So what was inside? Well, it was both shocking and weirdly organized. In that first crate, they found Dikko. He was unconscious, a tube down his throat hooked up to a heart monitor. And sitting right there, next to him, wide awake, was the anesthesiologist Dr. Shapiro. Then, in the second crate, were the other two kidnappers. And even after being caught red-handed, they were still insisting that Dikko was the biggest crook in the world. Well, as you can imagine, the discovery on that tarmac sent shockwaves that went way, way beyond Stansted Airport. This wasn't just a crime anymore, it was a full-blown international incident. The consequences came fast. The 4 men they found in the crates were all tried and convicted, and they all got prison time. Diplomatic relations between Britain and Nigeria just completely imploded. They were frozen solid for 2 years. Years later in the 90s, Dikko did eventually go back to Nigeria, but it was under a totally new government and he went back on his own terms. And in a final weird twist of irony, he passed away in 2014, not in Nigeria, but back in London. And here's the official line. To this day, even with a Nigerian intelligence officer and alleged Israeli Mossad agents literally caught in the act, both of their governments have consistently and officially denied they had anything to do with it. The Dikko affair remains, on the record, an act carried out by rogue individuals, not by states. So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? A man's life was saved. A massive international incident was kicked off. And it wasn't because of some Hollywood-style car chase or a shootout. Nope. It was because a shipment didn't have the right paperwork and one customs officer decided to ask why. It's an incredible reminder, isn't it? That sometimes the thing that stops these huge, extraordinary plots is just ordinary procedure done right.